So this is a message to all of you who have not really spoken up about what's going on with this election. What I need you to see and understand from my perspective as a woman, for example, among other minorities, but as a woman, for example, I have stood back my entire life and watched a society full of racism, full of misogyny, full of hate, full of bias. And for a very long time, I stood and said nothing. Didn't want to make waves, didn't want to get involved, didn't want to stand up, didn't want to bother, not my problem, didn't care. But since these things have started to come more into the light with this election, I'm very concerned with the way things are going. So I want to ask the men out there if they truly understand what it's like to be a woman. And this is how I explained it to my husband. You've never had to wonder if you got a job because you were a woman or because you were qualified. You've never had to walk through a parking lot with a set of keys in your hand because you felt unsafe. You've never been worried about checking the door handle of your car for, fentanyl or razor blades or whatever threat is out there. You've never had a conversation with someone while they're staring at your chest the entire time and not hearing a word you say. You've never had someone you like this because they have no interest in what you're saying because you're a woman. You've never had someone look down on you and think that you're less of a person or tell you, shush now, it'll be okay, in a condescending tone because you don't have the right to speak up. I've seen men advocate for others that, rapists' lives end up getting ruined because women unfairly accuse them of crimes. Really? Because the biggest rapist I know is the president of the United States right now, and I don't think it's held him back from his position. I've heard men say how women are hateful because they don't want to take care of their man anymore, because women are finally realizing that they're better off by themselves than to be with someone who needs a mother. You've never been called a bitch just for having an opinion and wanting to stand up for yourself. You've never been told you're not pretty enough, so you should wear more makeup or do your hair more often so that you fit in better with society. You've never been told that expensive makeup and body creams for the wrinkles on your face are more important than the food that you put into your children's bellies. And you've never been told, let the men do it. They'll take care of it. You've also never lived through physical abuse and had the abuser and his friends and family tell you that this person is a fine individual and they're very charming. So if none of these things apply to you or have ever happened to you, you don't get to speak about my rights. You don't get to speak about my opinion. You don't get to tell me to be quiet anymore. And as a matter of fact, we're looking at you to start standing up and fighting back. If there's a bunch of men in a room alone and one guy starts harping about his woman and saying how she belongs in the kitchen, what do all the other men in the room do? They laugh. They laugh and they sit in the corner. Someone makes a comment about an immigrant having a different accent and all the men in the room laugh. Nobody says anything. Everybody talks about how horrible Donald Trump is, but nobody stands up and actually says anything about why he's that horrible. Nobody seems to care that he was legitimately charged with the rape of another human being and found guilty, and he's still in the office of the president of the United States. Show me one example of a man who's had his life ruined because a woman made an accusation about SA, even though the accusation was true. And then show me the case of where the woman made out better for it. So she embarrassed herself, put her entire shameful experience that she feels on display for the entire world. And she did that for what? If you stay silent, you are complicit. You are allowing this activity to continue and not saying that it's unacceptable. We need to start calling this stuff out as unacceptable. It is unacceptable to say that women deserve less. Look what happened in the United States. Half the country didn't even bother to vote. They didn't speak up. They didn't say anything. They just stayed in their own little bubble and didn't bother with anyone else. And they didn't bother to vote because they didn't care. And then the other 50% were so divided that they argued against each other. And Donald Trump ended up getting in with like a third of the vote. If we do not start standing up against Poilievre and his trash talk, with his misogyny and his anti-Palestinian rhetoric, anti-immigration rhetoric, anti-gun rhetoric, anti-healthcare, anti-social services, anti-everything rhetoric, if you do not stand up for it, you are complicit. So while I can appreciate that some of you have the ability to be quiet in this election and just sit in the corner and let it happen, some of us don't have that luxury. Some of us have been fighting for decades. My mother, my own mother, was unable to get a bank account or take out a mortgage until after I was born. This is still recent. This is not hundreds of years ago. This is still recent. Rosa Parks was the woman on the bus who refused to give up her seat because of all the racism that was going on in the country. She just died a few years ago. This was not that long ago. This was not hundreds of years ago. This is in our lifetimes that this is still happening. So if you are an ally of women, of LGBTQ, of people of other cultures, of anyone who is different you, if you are an ally, you need to start speaking up and calling out this bullshit rhetoric. Because if you don't, when it's all over and done, and if Pierre Poilievre wins the election, don't come to me looking for friendship, because I will have nothing to do with you ever again. To all of you who recognize what's happening, elbows up and stay strong.